The Wherry lines connects Norwich with the seaside resorts of Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft. We will be taking a return cab ride from Norwich to Great Yarmouth, running out via Acle and returning via Reedham. These lines are named after the Norfolk Wherry, a sail and oar boat, which was the main form of transport in the area prior to the development of the roads and railways. Our train out to Yarmouth is formed of top and tail Class 37s with a rake of 3 Mark IIFs, known as the short set. The train is the 2P20 1236 Norwich to Great Yarmouth stopper service, operated by Abellio Greater Anglia, and the locos and coaches supplied by Direct Rail Services, or DRS. Up front is 37405, wearing the DRS compass livery, and on the back is 37422, wearing the unbranded DRS blue livery. At 12:36 we get the road and the right of way from the guard. The short set originated in 2010, formed of a couple of spare Mark IIIs and a DVT with top and tail DRS Class 47s, initially working on an ad hoc basis. This later changed to a fixed permanent Monday to Friday diagram and DRS supplied Mark IIF stock, and in 2015 DRS changed the haulage to Class 37-4s. The reason for local haulage is because of an ongoing shortage of diesel multiple units. Most services run between Yarmouth and Norwich, however there are a couple of turns to Lowestoft. When not in use, the set is stabled at Cram Point Depot. On the other side of the UK, DRS Class 37s and Mark IIs can also be found operating for Northern, between Preston, Barrow and Carlisle on the Cumbrian coast. The line speed now increases to 60 miles an hour, so I shall shut up as power is applied to get the train on the move. A single yellow slows our progress briefly as the DMU comes off the Sheringham line at Whittlingham Junction. The line to Sheringham via North Walsham and Cromer is known as the Bittern Line, after a rare species of bird found in the Norfolk Broads. Once the driver sees the route is set, the driver gives the 37s another thrashing. We now slow for a speed restriction over a bridge. Note the dual speed limit, otherwise known on the railway as a differential speed limit. The top applies to DMUs, which can continue at 60 miles an hour, and the bottom limit of 20 miles an hour applies to freight and locomotives. This service runs to DMU timings, and with this 20 miles an hour restriction in force, it delays our train by a couple of minutes. Once our train is clear of the bridge, power is applied once again as we can proceed to 60 miles an hour. We now approach Brundall Gardens, a small, quiet, two-platform station serving the western side of the village of Brundall. Despite the name, the Brundall Gardens no longer exist. Note the H stop sign at the end of the platform. The station is only just long enough to accommodate 3 coaches. Stopping near the H sign ensures that our 3 Mark IIs will fit with the locos overhanging the platform. In case you're wondering what H stands for, it actually stands for Hastings. Back in the late 1990s, Anglia Railways hired preserved Hastings DEMU number 1001 to operate additional trains during the summer months. Brundall Gardens is served by hourly services to Norwich and Great Yarmouth, with some lower stop services calling here in the peak hours. After a quick stop, the peace is about to be disturbed as we get the right way. We have passed the last colour light signal and now run under semaphores under the absolute block signalling, which is a safety design which only allows one train to occupy a section of track or block at any time. We get checked into Brundall Station as the starter signal is at danger. The signalman at Brundall will only release the home signal into the station until our train has been brought to a low speed, or nearly to a stand. Once released, the driver must assume that the next signal is red. Brundall Station is practically stuck in a time warp. Semaphore signalling, manually operated wooden gates, jointed track, and to complete the scene with our arrival, ex-British Rail Class 37s. Note the crossover unusually placed by Platform 1. It hardly sees any use nowadays, but would have been used by freight trains from the goods yard, which is now the site of a car park. Brundall's signal box is situated to the end of Platform 1. The station is served by Great Yarmouth services and some Lowestoft services. Once the 1219 DMU series from Great Yarmouth has cleared the single line ahead, we get the road and the right of way. At Brundall Junction, we turn off onto the single line via Acle. The line ahead continues on to Reedham and Lowestoft. After the junction, the line speed returns to 60 miles an hour, and the gradient increased to 1 in 100, easing out to 1 in 115. The distance signal here is operated by the crossing keeper at Chapel Road. The signal is interlocked with the gates, so that the crossing keeper cannot pull the signal off unless the gates are closed. The second distance signal is operated by the crossing keeper at Lingwood Station Road crossing. If this signal was a caution, the driver assumes that Chapel Road crossing is clear, but Lingwood crossing is not. Chapel Road level crossing was the scene of an accident in 2014 when a Class 57 hauled railhead treatment train collided into the wooden gates due to driver error. Lingwood is only one of two stations on the Wherry Lines network that has a single platform. Just past the station is Station Road level crossing, which is operated by wooden manual gates. The station building closed in 1965 as part of the Beeching Cuts, however it still exists as a B&B. Our driver awakens the quiet village with a spirited departure, so stand by for some more English electric racket. We now come under the control of Acle signal box and encounter our first colour light signal since Brandle Gardens. This is an automatic repeater, but it can only show green, providing the next 3 semaphores are set to clear. Note the abandoned goods shed to the left. The only remains of what was once the site of a coaling depot and a goods yard. Acle station is located on a passing loop. Although only a very small handful of services, mainly in the morning, are actually booked to pass each other here. The station building is now a holiday cottage, complete with DRS Class 37s at your doorstep to whisk you away to Norwich or Yarmouth. Acle signal box is located at the Norwich end of platform 2 and dates back to 1881. As we cruise along, I'll take this opportunity to talk about our locos. Our lead loco, 37405, started life in 1965, being allocated to Cardiff Canton as D6982, later renumbered in 1974 to 37282. After spending just under 20 years in Wales, 37282 was transferred to Eastfield Depot in Glasgow, and a year later was refurbished at Crewe and renumbered 37405. Between 1986 and 1997, 405 bore the name Strathclyde Region. During the 90s, 37405 was shifted around, and later worked for EWS, spending most of its time working the Arriva Trains Northern loco sets over the Settle and Carlisle line, and later the Cardiff to Romney services in the mid-2000s. It was then stored in 2010 until 405 was bought by DRS in 2012, and since June 2015, the 37 is currently enjoying its time working the short set. On the rear is 37422, which started out in 1965 as D6966, first allocated to Darnall in Sheffield, and then 4 years later it was moved to Stratford, London. It was renumbered to 37266 in 1974, and later moved to Landor in Swansea in 1981. 4 years later it was rebuilt as a 374, with twin fuel tanks added later, and renumbered 37422. The loco then spent time working the Fort William to Mallaig services during the late 80s, and then works the Crewe to Holyhead services in the 90s with regional railways. 422 became part of EWS's domain upon privatisation and was later allocated to Cardiff Canton, mostly working the Cardiff Romneys. It was then stored in 2008 before being sold to DRS in 2011. The 37 has been named twice in its career. Between 1993 and 2000 it was named Robert F. Farley, and from January 2003 until 2011 the name Cardiff Canton graced the loco's bodyside. 422 started working the short set diagrams in mid-2015 and can still be seen operating the service, at the time of writing in April 2016 at least. DRS only provide the locos and coaching stock for these services, the train being crewed by Abellio Greater Anglia drivers and guards based at Norwich. However, DRS can only supply locos with DRA fitted in the cab, as Abellio stipulated that drivers can only drive locos or units that are fitted with DRA. Generally, 37405, 419, 422 or 425 get rostered for the short set. Braden Junction, where the line from Reedham via Burney Arms comes in from the right. There is no actual junction here anymore, The signal box and crossovers were removed in the 1970s, and now the lines simply run parallel as two bi-directional single lines for the last mile into Great Yarmouth. To the left is Great Yarmouth carriage sidings, just slightly overgrown, but all the track is still in situ. With summer local trains from London, the Midlands and the North a thing of the past, the carriage sidings was made redundant. However, in the early 2000s, EWS trialled with freight services from Great Yarmouth, using these sidings for loading fertiliser, but the service was short-lived as it wasn't cost-effective. Great Yarmouth Station is a shadow of its former self. With 4 long platforms, only platforms 2 and 3 see regular use. All 4 platforms can at least take 11 coaches, but nowadays the 3-coach short set is the longest scheduled passenger train booked in to Great Yarmouth. To the right of the station was the goods yards and depot, now the site of a supermarket. The station was formerly known as Yarmouth Vauxhall, being simplified to Yarmouth in the 1950s. It was renamed to its current title in 1989. We will now return to Norwich, this time running via Burnley Arms and Reedham. The journey is on board a Class 47, so if Souls of Thrash is not your thing, then you can stop watching this video now or skip to the end for the feature video. It's nearly 10 AM on a summer Saturday morning in 2012, and 47802 has just arrived with the empties from Norwich Cranpoint Depot, formed of a Class 90 with 8 Mark IIIs and a driving van trailer. The 47 is needed as, though you've probably figured out, there's no overhead wires. The train will now run as the 1040 Great Yarmouth to London Liverpool Street service. The Class 47 will be detached at Norwich. The Class 47 cannot work in push-pull mode with the DVT, so the loco will first run around the train. Once in the head shunt, the shunter operates the station ground frame, released by Yarmouth Vauxhall signal box, to operate the points so that the loco can run round via platform 3. The loco then returns at the other end, coupling up to the DVT. Because the train is overhanging the platform, and the loco is past the starter signal, The driver shunts the train into the platform. The train is nearly ready for departure, and Yarmouth Foxer box has set the route. The R in the display box means the road is set for the route via Reedham. With a trailing load of around 390 tonnes, the 47 will need to work a lot harder than the Class 37s on the short set. The Class 47 drags are now a thing of the past. As DRS moved the Class 47s out of Norwich in favour of Class 37s, the through services to and from London came to an end, as the 37s cannot haul an 8-coach electric set and supply enough heating and electricity. The last through London services was in 2014. However, the short set is diagrammed to work on summer Saturdays from Norwich to Yarmouth to cover the loss of the through service. now pass through Burnley Arms. You may notice that there's no buildings in sight. That's because the station is in the middle of nowhere. When the railway was built in 1844, the railway company had to buy the land from Thomas Burney, the local landowner, in order to build the route over the marshes. He sold the land to the railway company on the condition that a station was built. Burnley Arms is one of the most remote and least used stations in the country, but is still open as a request stop. It is more popular in the summer, as walkers and ramblers like to visit the area. The nearest road is a few miles away, so the only access is by train or on foot. Only 2 trains a day call here in each direction on a weekday, but this increases to 5 on Sundays. We now slow for Reedham Junction. The route from Lowestoft comes in from the left. The area is controlled by Reedham Junction signal box, which opened in 1904. Although we have come off a single line, we don't need to hand over a token, as the Burnley Arms route is operated by a tokenless block system. The station is referred to as Reedham Norfolk by National Rail, to distinguish it from the other Reedham station in Surrey. It is mainly served by services to and from Lowestoft. Direct trains from here to Great Yarmouth are limited, as the station is served by the same services that call at Burnley Arms. Even a bus involves 2 changes via Acle, as the only direct bus runs once a day on Wednesdays and Saturdays only. Alternatively, if you have a lot of time on your hands, you can walk via the Wherryman's Way, which should take you around 4 hours. Cansley Station opened with the line in 1844. The signal box here dates back to 1877 and is fitted with a 22 lever frame. The signalman also operates the manual wooden gates. We now pass through Buckingham Village. Like Burnley Arms, this is one of the least used stations in the country. It has a rather poor service, with just one train a day in each direction on Saturdays and 4 on Sundays. There is no service at all on weekdays. As we poodle along, I'll take this opportunity to tell you about the loco. Our loco, 47802, in case you have forgotten, started out in 1966 as D1950, being allocated to Saltley and Bescot, and then to Leeds in 1975. In the same year, D1950 was renumbered to 47552, and spent a few years being allocated to various depots around the country. In 1989, the loco was renumbered to 47802 and was then allocated to the Intercity Cross-Country pool. It is actually a 47-4 subclass. The 47-8s have long-range tanks fitted, but was never officially classified as a 47-8. It had ended up being stored in the late 90s. 802 was reinstated in 2002 and transferred to Carlisle Kingmore for work with DRS. In 2008, the loco was named Pride of Cumbria. The loco has now finished work with DRS, as the loco was purchased by West Coast Railway Company in 2015 and reallocated to their base in Carnforth. The Yarmouth Drags were driven by a mixture of Abellio Zone drivers from Norwich and DRS drivers from Stowmarket. We are now back at Brundall, the line to the right being the route we took earlier on via Acle. Power is now reapplied as the driver takes a run up for the 1 in 312 incline through Brundall Gardens. Our progress is hampered by a 20 miles an hour restriction, which you may have remembered from our journey to Great Yarmouth. If you just happen to have skipped the entire Class 37 cab ride, then basically there is a 20 miles an hour restriction over a small bridge, which only applies to locomotives. The speed increases back to 60 miles an hour after the bridge, but the driver must wait for the whole train to pass the speed limit board before increasing speed. To the left is Norwich Cranpoint Depot. The depot opened in 1982 and has an allocation to Abellio's coaching stock, Class 90s, driving van trailers and DMU fleet. Their AMU fleet is allocated to Ilford. Coming in from the left is the Great Eastern Main Line from London Liverpool Street, the route this train will take after a reversal at Norwich. The sidings to the far right are Jubilee carriage sidings, and to the left is Thorpe Yard carriage sidings. This was once the goods yard and locomotive depot until Norwich Cram Point opened. Nowadays it is generally used for stabling the odd track machine and DRS locomotives. '47A22 is detached here. The Class 90 will work onwards to Liverpool Street, leaving at 11:30. The 47 will later drag another set, making a round trip to Yarmouth via Reedham, and will then work the 1450 to Yarmouth, returning empty stock to Norwich Cram Point. The drags may have come to an end, but at least we can still enjoy Class 37s over the Broadlands, which is likely to continue until the end of the Abellio franchise in October 2016, but could potentially continue beyond. But whether the Class 37s stay is anyone's guess, but enjoy it while you can.